Good evening. So, I wanted to kind of do a second part to a video I did this morning, which was about, you know, the true version that you should think of when you think of showing your horse who's boss. What boss you want to be. You don't want to be the boss that flies off the handle, that's unapproachable, that people are afraid, or your horse is afraid to make mistakes. You don't want to be the boss that your horse runs from because he's afraid of you. You want to be the boss that's understanding and considerate and helpful for them to be successful at doing their job. One of the things that I realized is sometimes when people think of being a boss for their horse, they also think of like on a corrective level, on a kind of keeping them doing their job well because you're on them about it. You're always trying to just like where there's maybe a hyper focus on the negative, where the interaction is more based on correction and direction even. But I'm coming into Teddy's stall right now, and Teddy has a kind of a habit of being a little bit of a bulldozer. He doesn't mean to be so forward. He's a leaner. You know what I mean? Like you go to put the halter on him and he leans in. Kind of like people who lean in for the kiss. He leans in to help, but his head is as big as my torso. And when he leans in like to your chest or to your stomach, and he actually just kind of crowds you. He just kind of gets in your space. And he's trying to be helpful. He's not trying to be bad, but I do sometimes have to be the corrective boss and say, take a step back. You're too close to me. I can't even do this accurately. And sometimes, he acts like he knows what the next step is as we're going, after I take him through the gate. He knows that we're going to go in, so sometimes the next step is we're going to go in, and sometimes he's a little bit more leaning towards the barn than being patient and waiting for me to latch the gate. Now, leaning, he doesn't leave. He doesn't walk off. I don't have to get my arm pulled out of the socket or anything like that. But he just kind of leans in anticipation. But he's about, 2,100 pounds? He's a big boy. This is him, right here. Look at how tall he is compared to me. Okay? So, do you want that horse? Even leaning is kind of, there's a little bit of a tug-of-war feel to that. So, what my point is that yesterday I had to tell him, that he was doing a lot of his leaning, and it wasn't really appreciated. It wasn't helpful. You're not helping me. And that's usually what I tell him, like if he comes all up in my space and I'm trying to halter him, I'm like, you're not helping me. And then I'll give him with the halter, the crown piece, I'll give him a little bump on the nose to make him back that extra step back. But my point of this is today he stood with me to have enough room to put the halter on him. He didn't lean in my direction. He waited for me to open the gate. He didn't lean towards the gate. And I'm telling you, he leans. He doesn't, he's just kind of like up over his knees. Like if he were to, he'd have to take another step. He's just kind of like leaning all the time. He didn't lean towards the barn when I went to fasten the gate. Sometimes he leans towards the barn. He didn't do any of that today. So as a good boss, I also cherish the good behavior and make sure that I reward the good behavior with praise. When we're mad at them, our energy and our anger and our tone has a tendency to be very harsh. When we're happy, when we're pleased with them, our energy has more joy to it and more elevation to it. seems like, especially women, they can change the octave of their voice much more easily than men. Men tend to have a little bit more of a monotone, but horses and dogs are extremely responsive to the variety of tones in a voice. It's important to me that my horse doesn't always just hear my disappointment in them. It's important to me that my horse also hears my pleasure with their behavior, and it also acts as a way to help encourage future efforts for their good behavior. I don't do treats as a reward, but I definitely make sure that my energy is very rewarding to my horses. So again, just know what kind of boss you want to be. You know, when people say, show them who's boss, it's not always misunderstood when people say that, because I do believe that often when people say that, they mean it in a, you know, you got to show them who's boss. You can't let them get away with that. I think you can show them who's boss in so many better ways. And one of the ways that I think is also neglected, especially in sport, you know, you kind of get, you as the rider become too focused on your sport that the piece of equipment, the living piece of equipment, gets forgotten as having any emotional and mental needs. So be the boss that encourages, be the boss that lifts up and embraces their goodness, and they'll show it to you way more often.